The Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, adopted by the U.S. Congress among 10 others as part of the Bill of Rights in 1791, reads as follows: "A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed." Here we need a small comment. Militia in this context are volunteer armed groups equipped according to the principle of what you come with, you fight with. Up until the 20th century, the organized U.S. Army was quite small, and its resources were insufficient to protect the vast territory of the country from massive invasion. Thus, a militia formed locally in case of a threat could be a significant help in the fight against an external enemy. Another purpose of such a militia was to counter various internal enemies, from Indians and local and visiting gangs to the protection of local democracy from the arbitrary rule of the central government. Clearly, the more the central government developed and the deeper it penetrated into all aspects of society, the less it liked the idea. But we are not talking now about the struggle of various politicians against the Second Amendment, but about the results of its existence for more than 2 centuries. But since such old statistics simply do not exist, let's try to look at the situation through the eyes of dry figures for the last 30 years, because just about such a horizon provides us with the publications of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms in terms of civilian gun trafficking and the Federal Bureau of Investigation in terms of criminal statistics. So let's start with guns. No one knows how many total guns are on the hands of the population in the United States, not even approximately. According to estimates I have encountered, by the end of the 20th century it was believed that there were about 200 million guns in civilian circulation in the United States. According to ATF data, the following numbers of firearms entered civilian circulation between 1990 and 2019. 164 million firearms were produced in the U.S., of which 74 million were short-barreled weapons, pistols, and revolvers. Of these, only 9 million were exported, meaning that 155 million made in USA firearms have been handled over 30 years. And this is not all, because for the same 30 years in the country was imported another 77 million units of weapons, of which 43 million short-barreled. In total, 232 million firearms entered the U.S. market over 30 years, about half of which were short-barreled firearms. To understand whether this is a lot or a little, let's take a simple example. The U.S. Armed Forces recently signed a large contract with Sig Sauer to supply new 9 M17 and M18 pistols to replace the old Beretta M9. Well, how big? 500,000 sets of pistols for 10 years, that is about 50,000 pistols per year. And judging by the charts above, over the last 10 years, the civilian market has been absorbing at least 4 million pistols and revolvers per year. That is about 2 orders of magnitude more than the entire huge American military machine. Of course, the police also eat up part of the civilian market, but you have to remember that in the U.S. as of 2021, there are only about 0.6 million sworn to serve and protect law enforcement officers, and they don't change their guns every year or even every 2. A separate cherry on the cake is the weapons restricted by the National Firearms Act of 1934, National Firearms Act of 1934. In this category fall primarily automatic weapons, submachine guns, automatic rifles, machine guns, and the like, silencers, as well as legal trimmers, shotguns and rifles with barrels shorter than a certain length, 18 inches for shotguns, and 16 inches for rifled weapons. As for automatic weapons, the market has been stagnant since 1986, when a special law prohibited the production and sale of new automatic weapons for circulation on the civilian market. As a result, there are just over 740,000 automatic weapons registered with the ATF today, periodically changing hands on the secondary market at ever-increasing prices. Purely for reference, registered legal Tommy gun, Thompson submachine gun can now be bought for $25,000-$50,000, much less popular submachine gun Risinga for about $9,000-$12,000, the original rifle M16A1 for $50,000 or so. The same amount, give or take, will cost a German MG-42 machine gun from World War II if it is in good condition, Unlike automatic weapons, the production of silencers and cutoffs is still going on. As a result, there are now more than 2.5 million silencers on the hands of the population, and this number is actively growing, as silencers are not only cool, but also very useful, as they protect the hearing of the shooter and his neighbors from the excessive rumble of gunshots. And finally, here also fall the so-called destructive devices, that is, grenade launchers, mortars, and other artillery. In addition, ATF currently has about 1,700 ammunition manufacturers and over 14,000 gun manufacturers registered, from large companies with millions of copies like Ruger, Smith, and Wesson or Glock to single Bushman with a gasoline engine, making to order any custom exotics for every taste, color, and purse. Summarizing the above, we can safely judge how seriously armed American society is. 400 million guns. That's more than one gun per capita, from infants to the elderly. Of course, not every citizen owns a gun, but current estimates are that at least 30% of U.S. adults own guns, which is about 80 million people. Of these, only about 15 million are hunters, that is, they acquire some form of license to shoot game, while the rest purchase guns for collecting, sport, or self-defense. What is still interesting is the fact that at the moment more than 40% of all gun owners are women, and their share in the total number of armed Americans is actively growing. In order to legally purchase a firearm, a U.S. citizen must be of legal age, 21 years of age or older, and when purchasing through a store, must pass a mandatory background check through NICS, the National Criminal Identification System, which includes convicted felons as well as others who are not eligible to own a firearm, for example, those officially recognized as mentally ill. A number of states have additional restrictions on types of guns, as well as a waiting period for purchases, ostensibly to allow hotheads who want to settle a score to cool off, to buy Class 3 weapons, automatic weapons, silencers, etc. You must first apply to the ATF, pay a special tax, and wait for a special license, on the basis of which you will be handed the desired weapon or silencer, after payment, of course. Ordinary weapons after the sale are not registered or accounted for in any way. Moreover, when selling hand-to-hand, there may be no checks at all, but the seller post factum may be held liable if he sold his gun or shotgun to a person who knowingly does not have the right to own it, for example, a minor or a criminal record, being aware of this fact of the buyer's biography. It is important to note that the law does not consider the entire gun or rifle to be a recordable weapon, but only one main part of it, such as the frame of a pistol or the receiver of a rifle or shotgun. Everything else, barrels, bolts, magazines, triggers, etc., are in free circulation, and you are free to change these parts on your weapon as you wish. The main thing is to respect the NFA 34 and not to accidentally make an unregistered rifle or machine gun, because for such jokes is 10 years in federal security strict regime. As for carrying a gun, the situation depends very much on the state. In half of the states of the country there is such a concept as constitutional carry, that is, carrying weapons according to the Constitution. It implies that if a person has the right to legally own a weapon, he or she has the right to carry it everywhere except in certain places, where it is explicitly prohibited by local or federal law, for example, in court. In other states, concealed carry may require a special license issued by local law enforcement agencies, and the rules for issuing this license may also. And what is being done about crime against the backdrop of such an impressive increase in the nation's armament? Let's take a look at the official statistics collected by the US FBI as part of the Uniform Crime Report. These statistics include all murders, whether committed with firearms or by any other means. The same murders by year, but in terms of every 100,000 people in the nation's population. Next, total statistics for all violent crimes, murder, robbery, assault, rape, etc. Also in terms of every 100,000 population. Robbery and robbery separately. Rape. Data in blue are after a change in the methodology for recording crimes of this type between 2013 and 2016. Legal or justifiable homicides are defined as those fatalities where the use of deadly force was found to be legal and justified in a court of law. These are most often cases of armed self-defense or situations of apprehension of violent criminals. According to the FBI, U.S. cops shot an average of about 400 people a year or slightly more between 2015 and 2019. During the same period, ordinary citizens legally dispatched between 333 and 386 people per year, only slightly fewer than cops. According to the press, this is a trademark American trick. A person offended by fate goes out into the street, comes to work or school and starts killing anyone, often ending the massacre with suicide. According to the accepted methodology, Americans consider a mass shooting to be any shooting with no apparent criminal, gang warfare, or religious, political, terrorist attack reasons, with at least 3 victims, at least 4 in data prior to 2013. Often, people are under the impression that such incidents occur almost weekly in the U.S., but in reality they have occurred between 1 and 12 times a year over the past 30 years, that is, on average about once a quarter. According to the Washington Post, there were 163 such incidents in the U.S. between 1967 and 2019. According to Associated Press statistics, there were 59 such incidents between 2006 and 2022. The most casualties, 58 killed and as many as 546 injured, were in the 2017 Las Vegas shooting, when a lone gunman armed with several dozen rifles fired more than 1,000 shots at the cheering crowd below from the 32nd floor of a hotel. In 8 other cases reported since 1982, there have been at least 20 people killed. If we take the 25 bloodiest incidents during the period in question, the number of people killed in them is 474, plus almost 1,000 wounded. In terms of the past 40 years, this gives an average of just over a dozen killed per year. That is, the chances of being killed by the bullets of a gunman going berserk are about 3 orders of magnitude lower than the chances of being a victim of a common criminal altercation or being killed in a traffic accident. Self-defense with firearms is one of the most controversial points, and a great many spears have been broken in the debate around it. If we take as a basis a relatively recent study of 2021, in which more than 16,000 gun owners were interviewed, it turns out that about every 3rd such owner at least once used a gun to protect themselves, loved ones, or their property. From the curious, in about 82% of cases to shooting did not come to shooting. The act of aggression was stopped simply by the demonstration of weapons and a clearly stated intention to use them in case of escalation. About a quarter of all self-defense with a gun is in defense in one's own home, and another half on private property outside the home. Streets account for only about 1 in 10 self-defense incidents. If we extrapolate these statistics to all gun owners in the U.S., the number of which the study estimates as about 81 million people, it turns out that guns are used for self-defense more than 1.5 million times a year, and the case comes to shooting at least 250,000 times a year. To what extent these numbers correlate with other statistics is an open question, since the press usually only covers the most high-profile cases, and even then mostly local ones. The major media, especially those belonging to the Democratic camp, consistently ignore such incidents, focusing mainly on the negative effects of gun ownership. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell so you don't miss new exciting videos. See you in the next video, where we will continue to reveal the secrets of the gun world. See you soon, so very widely.